What's going on, guys, and welcome back. We have the iconic god Loki dropping tonight, and it is officially September season. We have a lot to break down about the trickster, all the best cards, combos, and where he fits into Marvel Snap. Loki, he is our man, and we also have a brand new season full of cards that are definitely going to change the archetype landscape of Marvel Snap. We have Alioth, we have Ravonna, and we've got Mobius that are definitely going to change the landscape of the decks that we used to know. And finally, we're going to be talking about cards on the rise. With all these cards coming out, with the meta shifting, what are some cards we see potentially going up in meta play and on the ladder? We're going to talk about this all today and more on this episode of the Snapchat. And as always, I'm joined by Mr. Alex Coccia. Hello, happy September, buddy. We got a new season. We've got ourselves some crazy OTAs. A lot of new cards to talk about. Should be a good episode of the Snapchat. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and you're right. This is an absolutely wild season that's upcoming. The Loki season is going to be all about mischief, all about chaos, and I'm all for it. I think the cards that we're going to be talking about today are absolutely wild, and I can't wait to get into the discussions.
We have another exciting season ahead of us, which I'm already deeming kind of like the new archetype season. There's going to be a lot of new deck creations and putting to rest some kind of old deck archetypes that have been around since the beginning, or at least have some effective counters. Man, we got the new season trailer. We have the Infinity leaderboards or Infinite leaderboards. What do you think about that?
I want to ask you about that season trailer. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. How was it filming that? Because it looked like a ton of fun, and obviously you played a key role in getting absolutely roasted the entire time, but you ultimately came out victorious.
Dude, that was such a cool, incredible experience. The moment I got there, I walk in the door, right? And they shoot all these trailers at the same spot. And so you see, the Ben Brode robot head, and there's some stuff from the other kind of seasons. And before I could even say hello to the team, they're like, I hope you're okay. You're, about to get absolutely blasted on this trailer. Before I could even, conjure a thought. And I was just like, oh, yeah, let's get it. What is it? And they're like, can you handle a lot of heat? And I was like, and they're not, telling me what it was yet. So I'm like, I don't, what am I about to do? Been, 8 wings last time. Are they going to have me, do something? And, it was actually really cool. They gave me this script, and they did these storyboard artists. So, this person, drew me out. They made me look way better than I am. I looked like Hugh Jackman. Yeah, a lot of fun and just really cool to be a part of that.
I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was legitimately hilarious. And, even with the way, you're arguing about, death not being a 6 cost, which is kind of funny, because we included death on our 6 cost, discussion we had, a couple weeks ago. So it was, so funny. I don't know. The whole thing was hilarious. I thought it was great.
Yeah, they, listen, first of all, I liked that I was going, kind of against Snapster, trying to take him down. One of my questions, right, was, I don't know, what card did Ben Brode play last Thursday at 2 p.m.? And my script says Korg, and I was just like, oh man, I'm just gonna pull this on him and see what everybody does. And I was just like, Arrow. And no one dropped a beat. They just kept it going, and it made the final, they didn't ask me to reshoot, so I snuck in my my true love there. But I die at the end. It's kind of a sad story arc.
Yeah, you know what? Sometimes the strongest story arcs have the most emotional endings, so I think it was fitting.
I'm dead, Alex. I'm dead.
I mean, you're here. You're here, so maybe in that storyline that you die, but it's a multiverse. Cozy, it's a multiverse.
It is. In fact, Mount Vesuvius wasn't as bad. Pompeii, it's okay. The pizza's good. That's the best thing going for it. But yeah, man, a lot of fun, memory in the making, and I'm fortunate to live an hour away from where they shoot that stuff. So before we kind of jump into everything, what are we talking about on your side?
Cozy, we'll be talking about the cards from the Big in Japan season. We'll be giving our final impressions and our final rankings after playing them for the month. We're also going to be giving some new player tips. So if you're new to Marvel Snap and new to the Snapchat, welcome. We'll be giving you some of our best tips to help you get started. And then finally, another new player-friendly topic. We'll be discussing our favorite Pool 3 cards in Marvel Snap.
Let's go and get to it, man. Let's get to the card coming out tonight in about, 12 hours? About from when we post this. Loki is coming to Marvel Snap, Alex, and good God, this is going to be a fun conversation to have. I mean, just talking about an iconic character coming to the game, Loki is up there next to Jean Grey. We haven't gotten a lot of just super iconic season pass highlight cards. Silver Surfer kind of rings a bell as well. He's a 3-cost, 5-power card with the ability on reveal, replace your hand with cards from your opponent's starting deck and give them -1 cost. Now, I want to highlight a couple things. Replace means if you have cards in your hand, they will be swapped out with cards in their starting deck. And then also, big time thing to highlight here, -1 cost. And I think, Alex, no minimum. I think that's a big thing to highlight. Not like Quinjet, not like these other cards. You can make 1 cost, 0 cost, and that's going to be huge. Initial thoughts on Loki?
My initial thoughts are super positive. I am really looking forward to this card. I love the design of it because of how disruptive it is. I think the scouting element, the mischief side of it, I think they capture the lore, they capture the flavor of what Loki is. I think that it has the potential to be very, very powerful for the exact reason that you just mentioned. You can bring cards down to 0 cost, and that's huge. That's huge because we know that's an immensely powerful effect. That's the whole reason why Quinjet got nerfed. That it's huge, right? Whether or not he gets played on 3 though, it's funny how like I've been playing with like Dex form and stuff like that, and it's like, you know what, it's interesting because like you want to have that large hand. You're right to identify right off the bat that you're replacing the cards you have in your hand with cards from their deck. So if you only have 2-3 cards in your hand, well then you're only getting 2-3 cards at the reduced cost, right? So you want to have that large hand. So do you replace them after you play something like a Nick Fury with Zabu, or like what do you actually do there, right? I think it's interesting from a piloting perspective, but from a card perspective, I think he has the potential to be absolutely wild. And wild is the key word that I'm using here because I think that's the right descriptor.
Yeah, so it's, man, I kind of alluded to it at the intro. This is the new archetype month. We'll talk about the other cards, but there's a lot of cards coming out that create new style of play for Marvel Snap. In a season, it typically is going to be complemented, right? We're going to see complements. And, you know, July was actually pretty good in creating some new stuff with Legion and whatnot. But with this season, we're having so many cards that just create a new way to play. And Loki is going to be fun, number one. I think like just season pass card, fun. Kind of like Hitmonkey. I thought Hitmonkey was just like a fun card too. Checkbox there, right? Number 2, chaotic, which is perfect for the card. In a new way to play. I think a few things is he's going to be the worst that he'll be to start this season because everybody's going to want to be playing him and you'll be swapping cards and crazy and the decks you steal aren't exactly reliable. Maybe because there are other Loki decks. And I think it's going to take some time to figure him out. But also, he could end up being an insanely good plug-and-play card for Conquest, tournament play, being able to see their hand. And it rewards people that love the District X's. It rewards people that likes Weird World and just thinking on your feet, trying to create what you can out of the cards that you've been given. And Alex, it also rewards people that love Agent Coulson and or Nick Fury, and that is where I'm pumped. I mean, the whole reason I like those decks, that style, is because I like, you don't get the surprise factor as much, but I like working with new options, especially at a discounted rate. And we're going to talk synergies, Alex. But man, Coulson, I think Coulson could end up being like a very good fit for Loki because of getting more cards to your hand, but also just fits that style of play, yeah?
It does fit the style of play. And the thing about Loki that's so fascinating is like if first of all, people don't put garbage cards in their deck, right? So you're likely getting good cards, right? The only risk is like if they're playing very synergistic stuff, like it might not work as well. Like, oh, I pulled a Venom. Like, what am I going to do with that? Like there's some cards might be a little too niche to their particular archetypes to have the overall appeal. And I think that's part of the downside, which kind of balances it out. But you're right. Coulson, fill up the hand, pull their cards. And like we've talked so many times in the past about the most powerful effect in Marvel Snap being cost reduction, right? Like literally what makes Zabu powerful? The cost reduction. What makes Sarah powerful? The cost reduction. And Loki does that with their deck. And so I think it's pretty fascinating from that standpoint.
Damn near anything outside of maybe High Evo Shocker, if it has cost reduction in its name, it's insane. Like it's very, very good. Like it has always been meta relevant at some point in time, which is why the other cards we'll talk about is kind of going to be extra crazy per se. Let's talk about synergies. We're going to talk about big value, small value. How are you going to want to play him tonight and this week as you get the new card, and kind of where like I see him fitting into Marvel Snap. So first of all, let's talk about synergies and the cards that I think are going to fit best. Now, obviously, these are cards that either give you cards in your hand and or they just kind of fit into most decks, right? Because you're going to have to think on the fly. You're going to have to be able to build stuff to work with other cards. So as like a vacuum, I want to just say like good stat cards are going to be just fine to have. Cards that already work, that can be discounted, that kind of doesn't really matter the other cards in the deck. They're just good statted, right? And those are the ones I'm going to see working. Jeff, another great example. Thanos, right? I think Thanos, the thing is Thanos has incredible draw. And having the ability to have a Mind Stone on 1 and then maybe a Soul Stone on 2 just gives you a huge hand to then be able to change. And then also with all that, what does Thanos do well? Well, he takes a God of Mischief and he just works with so many different cards. So you can make a deck that doesn't have necessarily synergy, just great cards with it, and Loki's included.
I love that idea. And like, even you can play something like a Loki Time Stone. You have the extra energy and allows you to just like do the next turn with all those cards you've brought in at a reduced cost. And we've seen a lot of Quinjet and Thanos in the past, not quite anymore, but I wonder if we start seeing it again because of that interaction, right? I love the call with Thanos because it maintains such a large hand, right? And that lets you confidently play Loki on 3, which might be a challenge in some other archetypes. So I love the call out of Thanos here.
Well, I think we can both agree, and you just said it, right? The Quinjet interaction, I want to talk about that for a second because the people, you got to understand. First of all, you steal a Sarah, you get a 4-cost Sarah, and then you have a 3-cost, 2-cost, 1-cost, everything else, right? So having that ability, there's going to be some cards, mainly other cost reduction cards or just like swing cards, leech, things like that, are going to be really, really helpful getting that, at a cost reduction. But then, and we got to remember, guys, you don't always get perfect draw. Everything's not always going to be perfect. But if you do get Quinjet and then you get Loki to follow in what I would assume is an America Chavez deck, I do see Chavez really being a home with Loki just to make it all more dependable. You don't really care what you're getting. You just want to make sure that you get Loki, maybe Quinjet in there. A cost reduction of 2. We haven't seen this since Zabu days, man. And we saw it get out of hand with Zabu. I don't know if you've ever done like a Sarah deck with Onslaught and seen just the hilarity of what you can play. It gets nutty pretty fast.
It's kind of wild to think about how like Loki is going to provide players with an opportunity to really use opponents' decks against them, which could be very fun for new players as well. Because like, let's say you don't have like all these pool 5 cards and stuff. You're like, hey, look at that Galactus that you have. I like playing Galactus. Hey, I can play Galactus on turn 5 with no ramp. Thank you very much. It's like so interesting to see how like this card's going to interact as a whole. But like the cost reduction is insane. And then getting that Quinjet and dropping them by 2, Galactus on turn 4. Thank you very much. Ain't nobody expecting that, right? So it's kind of fun. Actually, maybe they do expect it because it's in their deck, right? So it does have some counterplay. But you're right, Cozy. Like Zabu was I think it was the only time we've ever had a 2 power reduction in a card, right?
2 cost reduction,
and it completely shattered everything. Like the Absorbing Man Spider-Man combo literally had I'm like, do I smash my phone right now? Like, is this the end of my Marvel Snap career because of these damn combos? But they fixed it, right? And I don't know. I think we're in for a wild ride.
Which I love because I feel like the Agent Coulson deck still does what it does well, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. deck. But it has been outshadowed a little bit, and I'm glad to see kind of this random chaos deck, in a sense, come back into light. I will say, too, people I think are a little bit worried about synergy. Like, what if you go against a Destroy deck? Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, yeah, you get a Bucky Barnes, but you're going to get a Venom or probably a Deathlock. You're going to get like 4 or 5 cards. But, dude, just getting their Death or Null, it's over. If you get their Death, you immediately just like clap that deck because you get their biggest swing, right? And so it's the little things like that where I think that, on reveal, you get a Wong, like, cool, you'll be able to make that probably to your advantage. There's some that aren't going to work, right? I mean, there's Cerebro decks that can be a bit awkward, maybe, but altogether, I think the cards you get, like you said, people don't just put bad cards in decks for no reason. Now, some other things that I think are going to kind of fit in well, I mean, we'd be dumb not to talk about the Collector, who... we are assuming it's going to work. I would assume, just by reading the text here, that this is going to work, right? You've got replace your hand, right? So you would assume these cards did not start in your hand, and all of a sudden, you have an immediate impact of, what would that be, up to 3, 4? You got like a 2-6, 2-7, maybe even a 2-5 by doing nothing, and then you can continue to build on that with your deck.
I do. And I think it's fascinating from a standpoint of, like, you play Collector, but it comes at the cost of like hand generation. Like in my head, like here's the trade, right? So Collector gets that plus 3, +4, whatever it happens to be. But like the way I've been seeing the turn 1 and 2 play, like again, I like the lines. I like thinking about the lines. And it's like, okay, you have something like Agent 13 into, say, even a Maria Hill, which might actually outperform a Mirage in this case because of the extra power on her. It's like, okay, you play Maria Hill, you get the extra, the card that swaps with the Loki at the -1. Or do you play Collector and then have that ramp up? So I like these early game options, how there's no easy choice, right? And Collector is obviously hyper powered in this scenario. But maybe you just really want that 2/3 power of Maria Hill because you just want that extra card in your hand because you just want to replace it.
Well, what's cool too is like, you know, you can do the if you have Chavez, you can have Quinjet, Collector. I would put Zabu in there as well, and maybe a couple Agent Coulson we just talked about. So now all of a sudden, you're not just like relying on this one card to pull it off. You get a couple of these, and now you're starting to fire off the cannons. Now, it's going to be interesting because these cards are energy reduced. You kind of are going to have to be careful on space. And so, you know, I call it, you got the 1-for-1s, right? So we already know these exist in the game. And I don't know if I'll be including these in all my decks, but you have like the Cable, you have Mirage, you have Agent, right? People have been talking about Agent 13. So the 1-for-1s I think are going to be cool. But man, the ones that I see, the ones that I see just like shining big time is, you know, I said Quinjet, but if you can get Zabu down, either Moon Girl and or Nick Fury to all of a sudden just get that hand size, bam, maxed out, or at least close to it, right? And that's where I see there being a pretty big, significant advantage.
I like that call. I like that call a lot. The only risk, of course, would be like overfilling your hand and not having Loki in it, right?
Yeah,
So sometimes Moon Girl can be tricky from that standpoint. However, like you're right, and board space becomes a factor when if you have Quinjet and you Moon Girl your hand and then you swap it all with Loki, it's pretty crazy. But would that require you to top deck Loki? Like okay, this deck is so much trickier to design than most. It's crazy how Loki is like such a fascinating and unique card in Marvel Snap because like yes, you have board space you have to contend with, right? You also have to consider, okay, if I have Quinjet on the board, right? What is the latest that I can play Loki while still maximizing how many cards? Do I play him on turn 5?
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's an interesting question that I don't have the answer to yet.
Because your cards are going to be so cheap that you're going to be able to maybe push it a turn. I think 4 will be the latest you want to try to play Loki. 5 is still fine, especially if you have Collector on the board. For me, if I had Moon Girl, I would have to either, I would have to have Loki in hand, and then you just play Moon Girl, get them all copied, then play Loki on 4, right? And then you swap them all out. And then you just have a super aggressive turn after that. That's kind of the way I see it. Nick Fury kind of the same way. And then if you don't, both Nick Fury and Moon Girl, you're like, oh, cool. I still get the Quinjet bonus, and I can make something put together and have a Devil Dinosaur deck. That's where I see the biggest home for him. And if it's not that, Alex, I see maybe just like a Sarah, good counters, good cards, Enchantress, Shang-Chi kind of deck, and have Loki in there. Take some of theirs, get good energy curve, and then play it out.
It's funny you mentioned Devil Dinosaur because my first kind of pen and pencil design for Loki features Devil Dinosaur, which is counter synergistic in a sense because you can dump your entire hand so fast.
Yeah.
But I think that if you don't draw him, you have all this card generation that you've generated, that you've designed the deck for, and then he's a natural fallback for that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's important too because like as wild as Loki is, if you draw him on turn 5 or 6, he's effectively a dead card.
Yeah. Exactly. What I like about him, though, in Conquest is if you play him on 5 or 6, let's say 5 and they haven't snapped, you're like, how cool is it that you can just be like, oh, okay, let me just see their entire deck they're playing with, leave, and then I go into that next battle all the wiser. Like, that's where I also see him getting a lot of play, right? Just being that pure intel piece, Alex. But it is going to be this, honestly, he reminds me of those, like, characters in, like, MOBAs that are, like, very hard to master, but, you know, their skill range is so high. If you get good at Loki, I think at playing random cards, making things work, reading opponents, knowing if you want to steal their deck, when to steal their deck, hand size, all that, that's where he's really going to come into play. But he's going to be fun for most. I don't think he's going to be game-changing, but he's going to be a lot of fun.
It'll be interesting to see, like, you play Loki, you snap, and they're like, oh no, he has my combo, but it's cheaper than ever. Like,
yeah.
I'm scared now. He's going to hit me with the whole thing my deck is designed to do. I think the mind games are huge, but that's awesome. That's the flavor of Loki. I'm so glad they nailed it.
Okay, so I got a couple cards in here that are going to be like, wait a second. I was trying to think, you know, the obvious. You've got the Moon Girls, right? But what about like some real tricky cards that are going to be kind of nutty? First of all, I was thinking about some combos. Just general thoughts. I'm going to leave it here. Agatha.
Yeah, you've been sipping the grape juice, man.
I'm not playing it. I'm
you
just
making the
saying.
argument for Agatha?
Think about it.
It's an extra card. It's true. It's an extra. A lot of people miss that she starts in the hand as an additional card. That's something that a lot of people don't realize about Agatha. So I like where your head's at here. So I want to hear your pitch, but I am already skeptical.
It's not like she's going to be, this is going to make her like extremely competitive. But the way that I look at it is if you play Agatha with let's say, a thinned out deck as much as you can, Loki's your only turn 3 option. What if you have a Lady Sif or Loki? Those are your 2/3 cost cards. It plays one of those and you're good to go. You're free from Agatha's chains. Because if she plays Loki on 3, you get rid of the Agatha problem and you get an extra card to swap everything out. You do lose her power, but it's an extra card and you don't even have to worry about it.
Yeah, I like where your head's at here. I like the attack vector of let's get a card into our hand at any expense possible. But like the 6/14 can be helpful with Agatha. Like there's a reason why you Lady Sif her, right? So that you can Ghost Rider her after, right? The power is still something here. Like, but I like what you're playing with here. It's a dangerous game, Cozy. If you've made an Agatha deck meta, I'm going to be terrified for the future of Marvel Snap.
Fun is what I was looking at there. No, I didn't think it was going to be meta. I just thought it'd be fun to bring her up. The last card before we move on with him in general is obviously the discount's going to be great. I think he's going to just be a very advantageous card. I've been kind of stewing on this. What about Beast? Now, I say Beast because I'm thinking you could then take your Loki back, right? So here's the deal. You'd have to top deck the Beast for this to work out. But even having him in as an option is kind of a cool thing to think about. Because either one, you could play some cards Regeneration, Agent 13. This is like one of my favorite builds I don't think people were thinking about. You do the Agent 13s, you do the cables, whatever it might be to get card generation going, Maria Hill, right? And then all of a sudden, if you don't get Loki on 3, you just get these cards back. You take it back. You get your hand size getting nice and big without having to worry about it. Or if you get Beast later on, you can get your Loki again, which is nutty. He's only 2 costs. You can do the whole thing again, but you also now have these cards that are already so reduced. So you get an Iron Man, you can play him down, do it again, or an on reveal card, White Tiger, you get, right? Play her down, pick him up. Now White Tiger's 2, 3. Beast makes a lot of sense to keep the flow and the tempo.
It is a really cool synergy. Like you're right that like it would potentially be really amazing, but the top decking component of it makes it hard. I don't know, like it doesn't sound like it'd be consistent, but it would if you could pull it off. That is like a tournament winner.
But this is what I'm thinking. It's not even about like trying to make these dream scenarios happen. Beast, I did a video forever ago before Beast was like popping off. It was like don't sleep on bounce, and it was a collector Devil Dino bounce deck. That was the whole point of it, right? So it's not like you have to get them, but if you happen to have these conditions happen, it's an extra bump up in value. If you don't, then great, you get Beast and he's going to work in the deck synergy altogether. This is the one that I was sitting on that I just don't know was talked about enough.
It's fair. I had not considered Beast in the discussion with Loki, so I'm glad you brought it up. It's good to like really kind of think outside the box here, because I think that's where the most inventive decks come from, right? And ultimately, when we get our hands on it, we can test it, right? So like in theory, it should work, but we only have 6 turns, right? Yep. We only have 6 turns, which can be a bit of a factor here.
But like, how does this all compound together is what I do want to see. Altogether, guys, Loki though, I think we can continue to theorize on him. Bottom line is he's not going to be some meta-defining card you get, but I think he does unlock a new style of play, a fun style of play, and don't expect him to be earth-shattering right away. I think he'll get better over time. If you like Conquest, he's a big-time winner. And it's Loki, man. It's freaking Loki. Alrighty, man, let's go to the next subject, though, because we've got just a ton of cards to break down with the Loki season, man. And, you know, after the Destroy season, we're going to get to that, but I'm like, all right, pump the brakes. How excited am I really about this season, and what do I actually rate these cards? So I want to challenge us today, truly looking at these cards, seeing are they going to be well worth it, give them a 1 through 5 star on just the card, and then break down why we like them. Now, we, of course, have to start out. We'll kind of go in the order of release. It's going to be, first and foremost, Alioth, Alex. And Alioth, guys, is a 6/5 that on reveal, destroy all enemy cards played here this turn, including unrevealed cards. Now, I think this is a card that is... people are losing their marbles for this, man. I think people think this is going to be nutty, crazy, and honestly, I don't know if this is going to be even remotely the most impactful on the month. I think it'll be a good card. I think it'll be super polarizing, Alex.
You know, my initial thoughts were that, like, this card is completely earth-shattering. Like, I was part of the hype. I'm like, this card's going to be insane. And even as a 6 cost, I was excited about it, right? Now at 5 cost, I'm like, you know what? Now that I'm thinking more clearly, right? And thinking about other cards that came out, I'm like, you know what? We kind of missed the mark on 2099, right? Like, we can't get too hyped up about things every once in a while. Be more grounded. Make deeper analysis of these cards. I think that's valuable, right? I still think Alioth's gonna be good.
Okay.
I'm just like, I still think this card is gonna be good because it's it just does something that's so unique in Marvel Snap. It's the specific attack on the unrevealed cards, Cozy, for me, that like that's the most powerful thing. Because any on-reveal effect gets completely disrupted. Doctor Doom, disrupted, right? Zola, disrupted. Any card that has on-reveal gets disrupted based on initiative. And how often have we talked about Cozy to make early turns matter? And now suddenly we have a card that once again, not since Leader, has made initiative matter more than ever. And that's exactly what we have with Alioth. And I'm personally still pretty hyped for him.
Okay, I like what you said there, though, because you're not trying to get cute. You're just talking about him being a good tempo card. And that was one of the biggest things that I had written down. It's like, if you just have good, value plays, simply just playing him in a lane that you need to win, the other lane is already won, that's how you're going to get the most value. Yes, there's going to be some crazy combos. There's going to be a lot of synergy situations where Alioth is going to feel just so annoying. But just him as a nice, on turn 6, win the rest of the game, you win turn 6. It's over. That's where I do see him being the best. I don't think he's a flop by any means. I just think people think it's like the next best card in Marvel Snap. And I'm hesitant because I need to see how he plays out. And listen, they already put him up from a 5 cost to a 6 cost. So I think they already realized, like, all right, pump the brakes here a little bit. But if we were going to highlight what I think he is going to do well, first of all, ramp, I do think gets a nice little bonus. You can now get crazy things going. You can even get the Arnim Zola play with him, which I think everyone's losing their marbles about how crazy that could potentially be. Ramp sometimes struggles with priority. Sometimes it doesn't at all. I do see that being heavily impacted. Destroy is really good right now, which has armor slotted in anyway. As well, people need to remember, armor, if this was June, July would have been a problem. But now we're seeing armor in a lot more decks as well. And then you're only playing a 5-power card at that point. If armor does squeak out, or if there's nowhere else that you can play it, because there's a goose and an armor, as the meta kind of naturally goes. So ramp, I've got down. But Alex, I think we could both agree. Galactus with Alioth, it's going to bring back some old June 2023, May 2023 feelings.
It's going to piss people off. Because what it basically does is if you ramp out Galactus, they can't play. Like because you're going to have initiative. The only way the Galactus effect pulls it off is if you're winning the location. Now there's only one location. That means you have initiative. And then you follow up on turn 6 with Alioth and they just can't do anything to counter it. It's an easy win. Turn 5 Galactus wins with Alioth on turn 6 every single time. There's no counterplay, right? So yeah, you're right. People are going to tilt. But is there counterplay? I kind of feel like there is.
Well, there's ways. You know what I think of it, and people are not going to want to hear this, and I get it, but I'm truly trying to think of the balance team and how they thought of this, because they didn't not think about Galactus. I bet you the stats of if you get to play Galactus down before turn 6, what were those chances of winning already? They're probably very high, regardless. Like if Galactus gets played down, unless you have a destroyed deck, and at that point maybe it doesn't matter that they have Alioth, because then you just Bucky into it or whatever it might be. You know what I mean? Like, if you play Galactus down and you manage to get it on that location and you get it quickly, Alioth is going to help you auto-win, kind of like Spider-Man did, in my opinion.
I absolutely agree. And I think it's something they clearly tested a lot. There's no way they didn't, right? Because they would have had to have obviously realized, as you mentioned, like, hey, this is going to be huge with Galactus. And Galactus players have become increasingly better. And I think that Galactus right now is way less, we'll say, choreographed as it used to be, right? It's not like, oh, they played Yondu. Oh, they played Wolverine. Oh, here's the wave. It's not like that anymore. So now you can get taken by surprise with the Galactus on more occasions than one, and Alioth is like just so perfect. So perfect. But I think you got to be ready for it. You got to play with that in mind. Like, as you said, Goose, Armor, Cosmo, like those types of cards, hell, Polaris to some degree, right? If you're playing Surfer to occupy additional territory, like you just got to be ready. You got to respect it. You got to respect Galactus. That's the most powerful thing about Galactus. You got to respect it. The moment you don't respect it, it's going to slap you right outside the mouth.
Yeah. And I think that ultimately, if you don't play Galactus, you're going to have to be smart on where they're going to be playing their cards, which is why I think to wrap up on Alioth, and we're going to have to see how it kind of all works out together. But I do think outside of doing some cheeky ramp stuff with the Zola, the lockdown decks make the most sense because really you just need to know where they're going to play. And if you're able to cheat a lane, it's like the Hulk. It doesn't matter if Alioth was 1 million points. It's going to win that location probably no matter what. Like our high evil Hulk days where you cheat a lane, play the Hulk, you're going to probably win that, right? Professor X, maybe even Storm to a degree if you're able to lock it down in time. But also, man, like Jean Grey, right? Like you're forcing them to play on a lane where you know they have to play. And so that's where I honestly see Alioth being probably the most useful in a control standpoint.
The line that I've been playing with the most in my early designs for Alioth has been obviously Electro, Wave, whatever it is, some form of ramp into a Vision into Alioth Zola. Because I think that Vision will because you're obviously going to trade the Zola lane, like you give them the Zola lane. But the Vision gives you an option, like, do I attack the Zola lane or do I prop up another location that I might be down in? I think that those 3 cards could potentially be super powerful because a Vision could basically give you the win condition on a lane that you're potentially losing and not favorable to actually trade with Alioth. Yeah. So I think that there's going to be multiple ways to approach Alioth, but all of them are going to be powerful, but still balanced, especially with this meta and how much tech you're seeing towards Destroy.
So that just takes us to probably the card that I'm probably most excited to talk about, and that is going to be Ravonna. Mobius is close, but Ravonna. First of all, she is going to be probably on the best spotlight week in my eyes, especially if you don't have some of the cards. She's with Zabu. I forget the other one. I think Jean Grey, right? Like just a really cool week.
Yeah.
And by the way, speaking of that, I'm finally seeing people wake up on Jean Grey. I love it, man. I love to see it a bit more. But Ravonna, she's a 3/3, Alex. Ongoing effect, your cards with 1 or less power cost 1 less. She does have the minimum 1 on her side, Alex. Man, this is a archetype deck building card. Alex, initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts is that, like, the scope of this card is kind of surprisingly wide. At first glance, you're like, it's a 3/3 that, okay, whatever. The effect's strong, but how strong is it really? Then I started like kind of paying attention to all the cards that it would impact. And obviously there's like the Iron Man, which is still notable because Iron Man can get, a turn 4 Iron Man, turn 5 Zola. That's pretty damn good. Dare I say, even turn 6, you might be able to play some Zoo cards and add a lot of power on the board. I have a deck with Shana, by the way. I've kind of penciled out on a turn 6 kind of Zoo. But like there's so many interesting effects that you can pull off with these cards. And it's funny because like I kind of realized, Cozy, and tell me if you agree, but some of the most powerful cards in Marvel Snap have low powers. Like what I mean is like their on-reveal effects or their effects are so strong that that's compensated by reducing their power, right? Their actual onboard power. So when you reduce the cost, suddenly, again, cost reduction being incredible, you are able to pull off some insane combos with incredible power potential. So I'm actually kind of excited about Ravonna.
Yeah, and I feel like she's going to play a lot like Loki does. Because of what she does, you can play her on 4. You can play her off curve a little bit and still get that bonus going into 5 and 6. Like you can get enough snowball rolling where it's not like the Zabu, right? Zabu, you don't play him on 2, you just feel bad. You're going to feel bad playing her on 4, but it's not like the worst scenario, and then just do a 1 cost whatever with her, and then you can kind of get some curve going either way. Dude, this is... Okay, when you start to break it down by archetype, I was not lukewarm on the card. I was excited for her, and then I was like putting some stuff together, and I was like, holy crap, Patriot decks. Alex Coccia. Patriot's a 2/1. Mystique is a 2/0. Just that alone, you already have 2 cards that you're now playing for just nothing. You're playing for 4 costs, you're playing down Patriot, and you're playing Mystique. Is that not crazy?
You're literally reading my mind. In my notes, I have Cerebro/Mystique +2, Patriot/Mystique plus a 2-drop. Like, it's crazy what you can do on turn 6 now, because, like, let's be honest. Silver Samurai, not a factor right now. So you're able to actually hold these cards pretty late. So now, think about what turn 6 looks like with Ravonna. Okay, you protect the Patriot, you protect the Mystique, you protect the Cerebro, you protect the Mystique. And then you get to play an additional 2-drop, which is kind of crazy because like these cards often have 2-drops that synergize very well with them, whether it be Sinister, which, I mean, you want to hit with like an Absorbing Man or something. That's a whole other conversation, but like it's wild what these turn 6 miracle plays look like.
Yep, and like even more so, right? This is where it gets me so just hyped up. Ravonna on 3, let's say you get her down, okay? You could then play Patriot and Mystique on 4. Just get them out of the way. Get them on the board. Oh, well, what do you do on 5? Well, there's another probably kind of big card that you want to play in Patriot decks that has been working in Patriot decks. Okay, you've got Iron Man for 4 cost. Well, okay, cool. But what if we, this is where it's like, are you kidding me? What's another card that works in Patriot decks? Oh, Forge. So then all of a sudden you can play Forge, which you already know is busted with Brood at the moment. But imagine playing Ravonna, Patriot into Mystique, into Forge, into Iron Man. So you're going to give your Iron Man that 3 to get things going. And then on 6, Habbo, heyday. Just go Doctor Doom. You know, doesn't even matter. This is just Patriot, mind you. This is why I think people need to start getting a bit more interested in Ravonna.
You're absolutely right. It's funny because this is the card that originally, like when I was doing like kind of like my analysis on this upcoming season, I originally glossed over. I was like, Ravonna, it's probably fine, but whatever. And then when I started really digging, it's crazy what the synergies come out. I'm gonna hit you with another archetype, Cozy. Okay, on reveal. On reveal. I love on reveal. I've always loved on reveal, and I've been playing a lot of on reveal because somebody put me onto Echo. By the way, I've done multiple infinity splits of Echo because of you in the last 2 weeks. Let's
go. Okay.
But you know what's crazy? Think about the cards that synergize with Odin. You have Ironheart, Wolfsbane, White Tiger. Like these are like in White Tiger from a stats perspective as a 4/1 that throws out this. It's crazy. And often it's hard because like you just don't have enough. You don't have enough time. You don't have enough turns in the game to really take advantage of all these on reveal effects. Suddenly you do.
Yep.
Suddenly you do. It's crazy what these cards are capable of, especially when you have a closer like Odin, right? I don't know. Ravonna in this list looks like it could potentially just absolutely wallop people.
I love that you had that. Yeah, I had the Wolfsbane on there with the Jubilee. Good God, it's just gonna be sweet to have. An Ironheart for 2 costs just feels insane sometimes, man. Like, it's going to just be a thing of absolute beauty. Definitely had on reveal. Let's keep making our way down the list. Sarah control, right? Like, Sarah. Not that many cards in here that are going to work with Sarah. But, dude, this is where I continue to go down kind of the pipeline. Angela, obviously, being one less. Great stuff. Have her in the control decks. But then you also now have Bishop as well. But think about the curve flow of getting these cards out easier. Bishop never feels good to get on down for 3 costs. Like, it just feels expensive at times to me. Having that at 2 costs is a game changer, obviously. And this is all kind of going into Sarah, like prepping your Sarah placements. So I had Sarah as 1. But what combines well with Sarah? We just talked about Mystique. Dude, having the Hawk package. This could damn well be the new home for Darkhawk. Because you have Mystique discounted, because you have Darkhawk, you could play both of those now for only 5 power. If you have Zabu, it's another story. Then it's 2 and 2. Dude, this is a whole new deck build.
You are absolutely correct. And I don't want to reach too far into our next conversation, but if you think about the change to Rock Slide, right? Rock Slide going down to 3 costs, despite the loss of power, protects it from the next card we'll be talking about, Triple M, one might say, and allows the deck that you're describing to actually excel. Because all of a sudden, Rock Slide just is impervious to the effects of Zabu. It doesn't need Zabu anymore. So I am fascinated to experiment with the deck you're talking about because I think Darkhawk's best days could potentially still be ahead of him.
For sure. Black Widow goes in that deck like butter as well on toast. We got Cerebro, you just said, you know, Cerebro lovers, Cerebro 3 lovers. More in particular, Hello Neighbor. That's going to be nuts. To wrap it up on Ravonna, I could keep going, but I'm going to give you guys, let the mind kind of keep getting hot, getting sweaty. Even discard, even having her, that 3 spot, you know, we had Storm there for a while. It can be a bit weird at times, that 3 spot. So having Ravonna potentially give you this access, and it's probably not going to be your modern day MODOK deck. It would be a different build of it. But having that access to Mobius and Dracula, just 2 cards back to back, it's another winner in my book. I mean, it just feels like she helps out every archetype.
Turn 3 has always been awkward with discard. I feel like Dakin really helped solidify turn 3 for discard to some degree.
Yeah.
But it feels expensive to play Dracula very often, right? So you're right. I think it'll be a new type of shell. I think it still could work with MODOK. Like I still think there's a list there that probably still works, but maybe it'd be like a turn 6 MODOK. I'd have to figure it out. But yeah. Getting that Dracula out early, getting that Mobius out early, especially if you like top deck him or something like that, could be huge.
Yep, guys, Galactus even, guys. We have Green Goblin. I think Green Goblin for 2 is super cool. I'm that's going to have some good use. And then finally, man, I think it gives a nice breath of fresh air. You're already trying to get all this energy out. You're already trying to do all this stuff with like energy manipulation. Oh, here she is. Psylocke. I think Psylocke naturally now is a 1 cost that gives +1. And you have this time stone that you can kind of make work into your later rounds potentially that are already having these cards that are reduced. So pulling her at any time might feel pretty good. Altogether, guys, simple stuff here. Ravonna is going to be the way, the truth, the light. I'm excited to see how she's going to end up working in Snap. But I don't think she could be a whiff. I don't think she could be a miss. I think she just has a lot of possibilities. Let's go and get to the last card, which is the Ravonna counter. And it comes the next week. And I think this is important, obviously, because I'm anticipating Ravonna to just completely sweep Snap. That's Mobius. Mobius. Now, this is coming after, and this is perfect. People need to understand what this card does. The best way I can explain it to make it super easy to understand is what is armor to destroy, what is Cosmo to on reveal, Mobius is to cost reduction. Okay? So, he is going to supersede. He's the on and off switch of cost reductions. He's a 2-cost, 3 power card. Ongoing, your cost can't be increased. Your opponent's cost cannot be reduced. And this is the on and off switch. So wave. Every card interaction you can think of that is going to be working with cost is going to be limited because of Mobius. And he's going to give you the advantage and a big disadvantage. To me, this is the meta breaker. This is the card, Alex, that is going to really reinvent these decks we've been depending on for a long time. Because all of a sudden, you have an immediate answer. You have an armor to go on that Deadpool lane. But for the Sarah Zabu decks, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that of the season, this is probably the closest to the 5-star we're going to get. I think it might be one of the most impactful 2-drops in the game. I don't want to go crazy and just get, completely, just over exaggerate or anything like that. But I think this card might be absolutely insane. And you're right to bring up armor and Cosmo. But what I think this card specifically does differently is that the effect is not, it's not like mirrored. You're able to get cost reduction. They can't. So whereas with like armor and Cosmo, you can't destroy, they can't destroy, you can't unreveal, they can't unreveal. Triple M here says, don't worry guys, you do whatever you want. They just can't do what they want to do. Yeah. And I think that is really powerful because it creates a lopsided effect. And I think Jeff has shown us that some of the best 2-drops in the game, just some of the best cards in the game, are the ones that can stand on their own and just provide value in any different variety of archetypes. Like, I think this card in Conquest, I don't think it'll ever really feel that bad to play because, there's so many cost reduction effects. Like, this whole season is cost reduction. It counters Loki too. Let's not forget, Loki gets impacted by this card too. I think it has the potential to be absolutely meta shattering. It counters
the entire Loki season. So all the new cards. It counters the locations. Just golly, the Icebox and heck Iceman, but then also Dream Dimension. Golly, I cannot wait to not have to worry about Dream Dimension, right? Just that effect is going to be legit. Just to play him down, have him. He's 3 power, too. It's not like a Luke Cage that was a 2-1 when he came out, and then you just kind of felt bad playing him. It's a 2-3, so you have good power to the result that you're getting. And he just single-handedly shuts down Zabu, Sarah, Mr. Negative. You've got Shocker on High Evo, Quinjet, all the cards we talked about, Miles, Morales, Stature Decks, gone. Death, gone. And he's a 2-cost, so you can get him out early. Right? That's the big thing. You can get him out early, and it doesn't have to be this weird, okay, he's a 3-cost, you have to have priority, and then you play him, and by then, can they get the card out that you're trying to stop? You can just get him out quickly and just put a immediate stop. Now, you get him late, it can feel a little weird. As hyped as I am for Ravonna, these two together are the cards that... Here's the good news, and I was so amped to see this, man. I gotta say, sometimes we give second dinner crap. These are both Series 4 cards, and that to me is what was a home run, man, because you can just buy these if you don't want to go with the Spotlight. You go with, this is your token buys this month, right? You get both of them for the price of the season or a Series 5 card, right? That's kind of the way I look at it. You're going to probably want both of them. Mobius's Spotlight week is already looking a little weak. We don't really know. I think it's King, and we don't know the other one yet, but as of now, it's not super enticing.
Yeah, people felt it on their tokens last season where basically there were no Series 4 cards and everything cost 6,000. Hey, listen, I'm no mathematician, but 3,000 is half of 6,000. In fact, it's 2 for 1. It's BOGO, Cozy. Yeah. It's BOGO this month. And so for me, it's huge value. And you know what? Spotlight caches are really expensive to get to. Free to play players have to really save up their cash to save up their tokens. So if you're able to say, okay, this is when I save my cashes, spend my tokens, the strategy for that next month becomes much more clear with these Series 4 drops, especially considering I think these could be meta defining cards.
There's a major card I want to talk about, but it's going to bring us into our last subject, and we could talk about her there that has the synergy with Mobius. It's the most important thing to think about. Before we get to that, though, I just wanted to bring up, like, it's going to be very interesting on how this even works. Because if you think of a card like She-Hulk, okay? She-Hulk discounts so that you can play her if you skip, right? Cost 1 less energy for each unspent the last turn. I think, though, she's not getting discounted. I don't know, right? Like, I don't know if you get her discounted. I don't think she stays at that with Mobius. It's going to be kind of weird, right?
It's in my notes as a big question mark. Like, if you're able to get She-Hulk down, like if you skip turn 4, right? And you bring her all the way down to 2 cost, and then you just play out your turn 5 like normal. Does she still just remain 2 cost? Like, does she ever go back up? But I don't know. That's an interaction we have to test. I don't think they did a Q&A on that. Like, I tried to dig through it to see if there was an answer about She-Hulk specifically, because obviously She-Hulk's a huge part of the meta right now.
Yeah.
I don't know, Cozy, but you're right. It would be absolutely insane, completely broken, borderline having to be patched.
Yeah, she does reset, so it's not like a cost. I don't know. It's going to be, the terminology is weird, but also, like, if you think about the way some of these other cards work that we've seen before, you know, like cards that have ongoing effects can be a bit tricky. So I don't know. I want to see how that whole interaction is going to work, and I think Mobius is going to have a lot of these kind of like, what? But he will stop She-Hulk from going down from the opponent's deck. So we do know that. I'm sure that's how that's going to work. So regardless, that's nutty. That's absolutely crazy. We're going to kind of briefly hyper speed through this last topic because we have already talked about it a lot. But is the new season, new cards on the rise? We're going to talk about our top 5 cards that we think are going to elevate going into next season. Now, we can both say Quinjet. I think we've talked about Quinjet, right?
There's one. Yeah.
Yeah. We talked about Quinjet already. Quinjet's going to be much better with these cost reduction cards coming out. Give me one, though, that we haven't talked about.
I'd like to bring up Enchantress for a sec.
Oh,
I think that Enchantress is worth having a conversation about because both Morbius and Morbius. I think that's going to be a mistake that's going to be happening quite frequently.
Yeah.
Mobius and Ravonna are ongoing effects. And when you also consider that Enchantress does absolutely clap Darkhawk, Devil Dinosaur, Patriot, the list goes on. Enchantress is going to be a very important tech card in this upcoming meta, especially if you're playing like a She-Not style deck and you want to get rid of that Mobius style effect. You're going to have Enchantress. You have to have Enchantress, but I don't think Zabu makes these lists, so it's entirely possible that like you're just playing a 4 Enchantress because these cards are being played out on 2 or 3. So you're able to like confidently hit them with Enchantress, so I think Enchantress stock rises.
I like how our brains think because you go Enchantress, which makes a lot of sense, and I immediately went like, hey, if you can't beat them, join them. So I thought Super Scroll right off the bat, right? Hey, you want those new cards? Guess what? You can't get them. You probably have this old lot in your collection. I mean, that's just a simple way to just steal exactly what they have going on. And then if you're playing a Zabu build where you have Zabu, Super Scroll on 3, and then you're stealing maybe some Ravonna stuff going on. I don't know. Kind of crazy. The Quinjet stuff going on. I think you just steal them instead of taking it away. But I also love that, why not both? Have Enchantress and or Super Scroll.
I think that you're constantly trying to find a reason to pull up this this variant that I think you love. Is this one of your favorite base art variants in the game? It has to be, because like I feel like every given chance you have to talk about Super Scroll, this thing pops up on the screen.
Oh, dude, it's not even the best Super Scroll variant. I mean, come on.
Oh my God, what have you done?
No,
the audio viewers have been spared.
The Pixel Super Scroll is what I just blessed everybody's eyes with. Yeah, I don't get to play them enough, and I think again, when ongoing's the way it is, I just think these effects are gonna feel so good. I mean, think about when you steal Sarah, you're like, oh, hot damn, or Iron Man. These both have that potential, and these decks are built around it. That's why I do love Super Scroll a lot. And then all of a sudden, you just have a base cost game, right, baby? It's just like, all right, let's just base cost it out. Good tech card. Give me another one.
Another one that I feel like we did discuss kind of, but the implications of Wave.
Oh, this is the one.
Is probably insane. Yeah, this is like, I think this is probably the fastest riser, especially if the interaction works as I think we believe it's going to work.
Yep.
Where basically any card that's inexpensive under 4 will not increase in cost because of triple M, but any 6 cost or 5 will come down. So that basically means that you're guaranteed to be able to play 2 cards because you're gonna have a 4, and then like whatever your 2 and 1 drops, you can still play them, right?
Yep.
Am I wrong in this assumption?
No,
That's how I believe it's gonna play out.
This is how it's gonna work. Flat out. She's the #1 riser on the list. No question. Wave is back and better than ever. Mobius, what we didn't get to, where Mobius is going to be cracked, crazy, stupid, is you play Mobius on 2, you can play Wave on 3, all of a sudden you can cheat out a 6-cost card on 4, and your opponent cannot. It does supersede Wave for your opponent, which is wild. Okay, but if you don't want to do that, you play Wave and Mobius on 5, and then your opponent can only play that 1 card, that Kitty Pryde, that even Arnim Zola, but then you can play more cards and you can fill out multiple lanes. It's like having a Jeff, but all your cards are Jeff. They break the rules, right? That's what Mobius is going to allow, and that is why he's a cracked card, why he is going to be easily his own archetype, a 5-star candidate in my book, and Wave is going to have a heyday.
I think the 2 that are worth mentioning as well, I think we've touched on Zola already. I think Zola is going to have a lot of potential this season with Alioth, obviously, with basically all the other cards, right? Like Ravonna as well. But one that I think that is worth noting, especially for kind of like Series 3 players and people just getting the game, it's going to be Electro. I think it's going to be a highlight for Electro as well. Like just like Wave, like you have the opportunity to ramp things out faster, but I think that in this given meta, you're going to see the opportunity to use Electro more reliably, especially with Alioth. I think that there's going to be the primary decks with Alioth will have Electro in it. And also, let's not forget, let's not just talk about these cards, but Dr. Doom's back too, baby. Yeah. Dr. Doom's back, so the Doom Odin stuff still works. Will there be a time for Sandman? Does Sandman ever return? I don't know if this is a Sandman season. It doesn't feel like it, but anytime there's Sandman, there's Electro, and then there's Dr. Doom and Odin, so you got that classic combo. So I think Electro might be a bit of a sleeper.
Yeah, so I like, again, our minds are thinking differently in the same way, right? Enchantress Super Scroll, you went Electro, and we've talked about him. I went Galactus, because if you look at Ravonna, and you have the Hobgoblins that are cheaper. If you look at the way that these cards are going to work, the idea of doing a Mobius, Wave, Galactus, and they can't play a 6-cost card to try to beat out that same value of power seems nutty. The Electro, the Alioth, it kind of feels like Galactus is going to be able to be a lot better. And Ramp is best. It's been super awkward for 2 months. Ramp is best when there's 2 cards that do something really big, and you have multiple of these options. So it's Galactus and Alioth, or Doom and Odin, or Leader Odin. All these different combos we've seen. Black Panther, Arnim Zola. Now Arnim Zola, Alioth. We're going to have like more to that arsenal to build up and take advantage of. And so, you know, I'll give a flyer to Cerebro. I think that Cerebro is actually going to get better with these cards coming out. But all I know, buddy, is it's a big season ahead. And it's not even that it's a big season in what we thought Destroy was going to be. The way these cards are archetype defining, but also they are countering a lot of... It's going to force Snap to adjust and create some new creative decks and metas.
I think these are some of the most creative cards they've ever released. This, to me, seems like the most meta shaking season they've ever done. Like last season was pretty cool, but this one here seems like it has the most like concrete synergistic approaches towards new deck building opportunities. It's a great time to be a Marvel Snap player.
Absolutely. So again, Loki comes out tonight. Get ready to have some fun and just chaos, guys. We have Mobius, we have Ravonna, and then of course we do have Alioth, and it's going to be a good season. As always, guys, we have yet another episode of the Snapchat, and we're going to be talking about Alex's side with Big in Japan final rankings, talking about the August. And then for new players, there's a lot coming in because of PC release. We got some fun tips to break down, as well as the top 10 pool 3 cards. Alex, another great episode, buddy. And until next time, as always, happy snapping.
I'm glad you won, but you're still going to Mount Vesuvius.